Action.
Hello, darlings. Sundance, we're on. Look at the camera. There's a good boy. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another TeaFlix Tuesdays. Hello. Can't even say that. Poor old thing. She needs more rest. But first of all, I want to remember that today would have been Linda McCartney's birthday. Who could imagine that she would have been 78 years old, forever young in everybody's memories. But she was a great girl and left a lot of love behind. So shortly we will have our guest, who is GTom Mac, whom I'm sure the more mature of you will remember from Cry Little Sister from the Lost Boys. Well, he's got a lot of things to tell you about it. It's on the move again, but he'll be here shortly, and I hope you'll hang in there because he's got lots of interesting stuff to tell you about. If you're going to need tea for the holidays, by the way, folks, get it ordered soon, because with all this Chinese nonsense that's going up at the moment, prices might have to be increased. So get your orders in for tea, for holidays and whatever, and I'll get them out to you very quickly before the price goes up. So I'm sorry to have to do it, but anyway, never mind. It's only about money, isn't it? So it was quite a busy weekend, wasn't it, with Downton Abbey and the Emmys and all that stuff. I love the very great. Hey, it's not your turn yet. Wait. We have to get this fellow an agent, I think. Yeah, with all the British stuff that won, it's just what tickled me though about Fleabag. I mean, it's a great show and I loved it, but I can't understand quite why the Americans embraced it so much, because it's...
Can't bloody understand.
No, exactly. Martin's just saying it. Probably can't understand half of the things they say, and it's so raunchy. But if you haven't seen it, I do recommend it. It's great fun. And of course, there was the exciting premiere and release of Downton Abbey, which I haven't had time to see yet, but I'm hoping these kids here will loosen me chain and let me out for a couple of hours soon so I can go and see it. But yeah, I have to look at my notes because I've been up since 3 o'clock this morning. What's your excuse? So I went to bed early last night, and of course, when you're old and my age, the plumbing says to you,
Yeah, and the cat.
Come on, get up, get the bathroom. And then I usually think, I'll just check email. Wrong, 3 o'clock in the morning. Because we've got relatives in Germany and Japan and England and all sorts of silly places.
You're global.
Australia even, yeah. So once I start getting messages from them, I think, I'll just have a cup of tea. Maybe I'll just have a little teaspoon of whiskey in it to keep me warm. And the next thing I know, this fella and his brother are clawing at my face and they want food, and off we go again, but still we're here. So, I think, why don't we get GTom Mac?
Yes, bring him
come
on. Bring him on.
Let's have this rock star on.
I'm coming to celebrate this rock star.
How are you?
Absolutely.
Hello, darling. Hi, thank you so much for coming.
How are you?
I'm splendid, thank you. Brits, we have to stick together. So we won't talk about Boris Johnson. We won't talk about Brexit. Oh, no.
Oh, thank God.
We won't talk any politics
Give
at
us
all.
a relief from that.
I know, yeah. So tell us all about what you've been doing and what you're up to.
Oh, kind of a loaded question, but I'm used to it by now.
Go on then.
Just been working on this ever-long process of making this musical Lost Boys story.
Yeah.
And started on it about, I guess it was about 4 or 5 years ago. Started. The first 2 years was really just thinking it out.
Yeah.
Could this be something, because having studied musical theatre in New York back in the day, one thing you really have to always be conscious of, no matter what, is what your subject matter is. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't like, okay, Lost Boys is a natural, because it kind of, could not be. But I thought if you could get into it and tell the backstory in a really cool way, where you find out where David, the head vampire, where he came from, that being Lithuania as an orphan, and he's adopted by I don't want to give too much away, but adopted by American parents who live in Nova Scotia and are Jewish, and they basically couldn't have children, so they found their way in the early 70s to adopt a child. So then comes David. But then you get the story of him meeting the other Lost Boys going across the country. By the time it's 1979, 80, he's already a late teen and wants to find his own family, because he's already figured out something's going on in me. Don't know what it is. But he soon finds out what his basic, where he's come from and what he is.
Wow.
So, I mean, again, I'm trying to edit myself here a bit.
Exactly,
But he likes a cup of blood in the mornings, not a coffee.
Well, yeah, exactly.
A little drop of blood.
With a tiny bit of sugar.
Because it helps the
Makes the
medicine go down.
And we don't know what's in that sugar.
Oh.
But anyway, but I've been out on the road for the last 2 years, having finished all of the writing of what is the book. In the world of theatre, as we all know that. People out here think, a script, so is the script done? It's not a script, it's a book.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
so, it's an ongoing process. I have two really wonderful producers in New York, Eric Falkenstein and Evan Bergman, who have had many successes in the musical theatre world. And they've just embraced this thing, but they, to the most incredible maximum of I would want from having partners. But the thing about it is that there's constant notes. Let's change this. Let's do that. And vampires haven't been the most popular thing on Broadway. I mean, in a sense, they haven't succeeded that well. But I think the fact that Lost Boys has such a great sense of humor about it.
That's right.
And that's where I said, this could work. It's not foreboding. It's like, where you get to Act 2 and it's like, oh, enough of this guy and his loneliness already. It's not that at all. It's really basically taking what is the story, which is kind of a Peter Pan story in a way, So, which I've brought into play, and so been on the road. Just came back from doing some shows back east, and it's amazing to play brand new songs to my audience, because in today's world, nobody wants to hear your brand new songs.
No, they don't do that.
Unless you're some young indie artist that you have, 12 people show up because they're just fans, and maybe that 12 turns into 20.
And you haven't got enough rings in your nose. I hate to mention it. But,
I'm getting around to that, though. But it's been going over really well, and with playing the entire musical. Mind you, I do play a few cover songs songs that other people have made famous of mine, Kiss, In Excess, what have you. But it's quite interesting to see an audience just to embrace it the way they do.
Great.
Well, and this is a super busy time of year for you, because obviously Halloween, October, vampires, Halloween, the whole Lost Boys cult thing comes up again every single year, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does, and it lasts for a while. And it's year round though now, because I think there's so many people out there who have this wish that Halloween was year round,
I think it is in some ways.
Yeah, it's certainly because there's so many things out there, the goth world and all that stuff. And the thing about Lost Boys, it's not just gothers and people that are
it's him.
Yeah,
it's him.
Malnourished.
Yeah. The heavy
absolutely.
metal people. And
it's unbelievable.
Sure.
My song "Cry Little Sister" has been covered by Marilyn Manson,
really?
Embraced by Shaquille O'Neal.
How's
it's
name
unbelievable.
Dropping? I'll just pick those names back up for you.
But I just say that because of the diversity of how it's been appreciated. Obviously, Marilyn Manson would be an obvious artist to do it, but Jordan Peele, his favorite song in his top 5 songs. So anyway, enough of me.
Well, that's how we met, isn't it? When we built CryLittleSister.com originally.
That's right.
Right. How many years
Ages ago. I'm thinking that's probably about almost 20 years ago.
Ruth is going to join you guys.
I'm such a fan. I must sling in here. Sorry.
Get in here.
Absolutely.
No, darling.
And I'm drinking I'm drinking diluted blood.
Well,
for
good.
David.
It's diluted blood. And I'm drinking plain old vodka. No. Not really, just
It's
some nice
chicken.
water. It's
Chicken.
children.
Children now. This is a family
A
show.
PG show, yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
so you say.
So now, how did you first start in, back in Old Blighty? How did you really know? When did you really know that music was just it for you and that was your career? And
I must have been about 12 years of age.
Really?
And it was, I don't know. I mean, I remember going to, I was a young lad, about 10, 11. I remember going to this, in Birmingham, there was this small little record shop. And I found the first record I ever bought. It had Sun Records on it. And it was by a guy named Carl Perkins. I had no idea who Carl Perkins was. But, the Stones and the Beatles were talking about their inspiration. So I said, well, okay. And I just I took it on home, and it was a 45.
yeah.
And it was a song called Lend Me Your Comb.
Okay.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and there was I remember, somebody saying, oh, that's a guy who's popular in America.
Yeah.
Cookie, Lend Me Your Comb. It was like, I can't remember what the show was,
yeah.
77
Sunset Strip, that was it. Yeah.
That was right. And so when we came up, anyway, I didn't really know about that, but I played the record at home to nausea because I thought it was just so cool.
So you wore it out.
So and it was, my dad had, my parents were into Sinatra, but they were also into, opera and all that kind of stuff. So music was always around the house.
Yeah.
My dad was he played with the piano, and on the weekends, you know how it is with us.
That's right.
People over the house,
That's
smoke
right.
everywhere.
Yeah. Sing along, get by the piano.
And
Yeah,
a lot
get
of
round the piano.
drinking. Yeah, and I was not that I was drinking it, but it was great to have
Yeah.
Yeah.
And,
It was like a built-in barbershop quartet, wasn't it? We used to go to McCartney family parties, and Uncle Joe and Andrew would play the piano sometimes, and it was Uncle Joe and my dad and a couple of the cousins, Phil and Ted and whatever, and they'd sing Carolina Moon and all.
Oh,
It was
sure.
just what you did.
that was all.
Yeah,
That was
that's
all
right.
the stuff going on in our house.
Well, and that was obviously Paul's, influence was my dad's music growing up around the house. So clearly you took the same. What did you learn to play first?
I learned to play the guitar first, and it was. I remember my parents. There was a bloke down the road who played really good guitar, and I didn't have a guitar then.
Yeah.
And my parents got me this. I was borrowing a guitar from a mate of mine, and I didn't know what to do with it. And so this bloke down the road, Dave, who was 18 years of age, and he started showing me some chords. And then my mum said, "Don't you think we ought to get you some proper lessons?" And I'm going, "Well, Dave's giving me proper lessons." She said, "But really, so you can learn how to read it and all that stuff."
Yeah.
And my dad said, "Yeah, you got to learn an instrument. You want to be invited to parties. If you play an instrument, you can be invited out a lot.
Free food.
Yeah.
And you know how you learn." And so, but I didn't want to go. So they paid for a couple of lessons, and it was just so.
Yeah.
Oh God,
Yeah.
to yawn. And I just basically, learned from Dave and on my own, and I just basically before I knew it, I was playing decent guitar, and then I went on to playing some bass. The band used to come over to my house to play. Yeah. By the time I was in a band, and there would be a bass laying around, so I learned how to play that. And there was a keyboard. There was always a piano in the house, so I would muck around with that a bit. But it wasn't until later that about 17, I basically started getting into playing piano, and that came rather quickly as well.
Did it really? I think
There's a question from the audience, you guys.
Yeah.
Question for Gerard from Joni.
Hi, Joni.
Did you know Jeff Lynne pre-ELO?
I did not, but he lived quite near where I was. And interesting enough, Robert Plant lived up the road from me. When I worked with him, I knew he was from Birmingham, but I didn't. But he moved to Sheffield when he was about 11 or 12.
Oh, did he?
Yeah. So he told me. He said, "Well, we're on the phone." He rings me up. By the way, it's quite a crazy story. He wanted to write with me, and I'm going, So I said, "Well, that can happen." And but he said, "Where are you from, mate?" And I said, "In Birmingham." He said, "Well, whereabouts?" I said, "Wolverhampton." And he said, "Me too." Then he told me where he was in Wolverhampton, and we were literally, I could walk to his house in like 3 to 5 minutes. He knew all the same people, the Rices that were across the road. He knew this
crazy.
bloke we used to call Pete the Meat. Everybody thought he was in the mafia because he had an eye out, but he really got hit by a cat. He was a caddy and he got his eye put down.
Oh.
It was quite hilarious.
Yeah.
And my dad everybody thought, but my dad knew the real story. It was interesting.
Oh, that is
Nice to
wonderful.
hear from you, Joni. Hope things are going better for you.
Yeah.
So Joni, that was Jeff was obviously we Brummies have some talent in that town.
Yeah, no kidding.
It wasn't all in Liverpool.
No.
I
I know. Yeah.
I should turn you on to a young girl. She's 17 or 18 called Maisie Kay. She's from Wolverhampton
Oh yeah.
and she's out here in LA now. She is amazing.
A
She's
sort
written.
of like a young
Yeah.
Kate Bush. She's,
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Wow.
and
I like that
she's
idea.
written a song for the end title song for a Jacques Cousteau documentary about the deep sea, and they didn't want it in English or Spanish or whatever. And forgive me, Maisie Kay, when you see this if I'm screwing it up, but she literally wrote sort of the language of the ocean. She wrote her own language and wrote the song in it. She's amazing.
Wow.
And she
So
performed it at the United Nations, I believe.
she did. They
didn't she?
recorded it in Abbey Road, so she was all chuffed to go and do
So
that.
she did it in just some phonetical.
Yeah,
Yeah.
That's how I write.
Is it?
mean, yeah.
How funny! It must be
I find
must
most
be a
of us
Wolverhampton
songwriters
thing.
do that. I mean, we have like a little bit of a thing, and it's just this sort of phonetical
Blah, blah,
words
blah,
that we
blah,
make up until we finally get around to it. Always the music comes first for me, anyway.
Does it?
Yeah, I mean, I sometimes have a title, and then I'll stumble on the words as I go along. Like, oh, that could be a good bit.
Yeah.
That was I watched the last 5 years of David Bowie documentary recently, and he was talking about exactly that. And he would have just pieces of paper with random words on,
Yeah.
and he'd sort of arrange them in the studio as they were going, because the words came last for him too.
This morning I watched, what was he on? Can't remember the guy, the presenter. What was his name?
Colbert?
Michael,
Oh.
the older guy.
Oh, Michael Aspel.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh,
Okay.
really?
So, and David did Life on Mars.
Yeah.
Just him and the piano. It
Yeah.
was extraordinary.
Yeah.
And what wasn't that long ago, because Tom Hanks was on the show.
Oh.
Must have been about a couple of years before he passed. But what an amazing talent.
Yeah, he was working with Lulu. Do you remember Lulu?
Of course.
And he was working with her in. They got a studio in Ibiza, and I guess she was breaking up from Maurice from the Bee Gees. That was all sort of falling apart at that time, and they were working out in Ibiza, and something happened at home with somebody's family, and I think Lulu had to go to the Norfolk Broads or something, and that's where that line came from Ibiza to the Norfolk Broads, because they were working on a song. And
Because I noticed that today, and I never really kind of keyed into that line before.
No,
I
how
said, "Oh my
funny.
God, that's so cool!" Because
Yeah.
I thought it was something else. Because you could see him. You know how it is. Sometimes you don't. Males don't always get the words right the first time.
Yeah.
Females do.
Yeah.
By the way,
Especially.
I didn't know half the lyrics coming up. I mean,
Yeah.
and I would go to girls to say, and they go, "No, that's what that is, and that's
Well,
what it's about."
Yeah, and then when I hear Life on Mars now, I think about how far ahead he was with the whole Black Lives Matter thing. Take a look at the lawman beating up the wrong guy.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh,
huh?
I know.
Yeah.
I mean, how prophetic.
I know.
40 years later,
Well, he was
it's still happening.
He was always ahead of his time, and he was just such an incredibly gracious guy. My engineer, actually my co-producer as well, did a terrific job on the.
What's with
I
the
didn't do
birds?
it.
You didn't do it.
I'm
It's-
not here.
They've heard there's a Lost Boys meeting going
That's
on.
right.
It's the Ravens.
That's it.
They're trying to get on your
I
soundtrack.
give up. But he worked with David before he passed on, and he said he was just the most gracious guy in the studio. He didn't have any, it wasn't any kind of like demands, or he showed up. And they were working and was doing something for the last album that David did.
Black Star.
And Gab, he quite liked Gab because Gab had done all these hip hop, had done mixes to Mary J. Blige and to,
A lot of hip hop.
Mariah Carey, this one and that one. Had worked with a lot of great people, and hence he's working with me now.
Yeah,
Of
well,
course, keeping it
But
up.
he's a New Yorker and moved out here a couple of years back. So, but yeah.
Bowie was amazing. So how, back to the whole, the Lost Boys and the Cry Little Sister stuff, how did that all come about in the first place?
Well, Joel Schumacher, who was a fan of mine.
Wait, I'll get that. Wait, okay, fine.
Another
Exactly.
name drop.
He's at it again.
He was very aware of my music, and he basically asked Gary Lamel, the late Gary Lamel, who just passed, who was the head of the studio at the time, head of the music department, said, I'd like to get, you know, Gerard to come in and write a theme song. Can you get hold of him? And so Gary rang me up and said, hey, Joel Schumacher wants to talk to you about writing a theme song to this new movie he's got. So, and I thought the film was already done. And so Joel rang me up and we had a chat, and I said, well, when can I said, I'd be delighted to take a look at it and see if, you know, I can come up with something. He said, well, I'm filming it right now, but what if I sent you the script and maybe you take a look at it and see if that inspires you in any way. And I thought, wow, I've never quite done that before. At that time, I'd probably done about 14 films to my credit.
Right.
You know, writing songs like movies like Fast Times at Ridgemont High, All the Right Moves, you know, this one and that one of the 80s. But I basically took a look at he sent me on the script, and I read it one night, and I thought it was bloody
terrific, yeah.
but incredible, and incredible in a great, entertaining way about vampires, right? Yeah. And then I was inspired enough to get up the next morning and just write something, you know, went to the piano, wrote a little bit there, went to my guitar, and by the time I was finished in an hour's time, I basically went up to my studio and I was just getting ideas. And you've got to remember, New York in the late 80s was very gothic and very...
dark, yeah.
I remember walking out of my apartment, it was crack vials everywhere, you know, so... But anyway, I went and made a demo, and I said, what the hell? Part of me thought, well, it's probably so not it, but you know, I liked what I wrote. Yeah. Sent it out. He got it. Rang me back 3 or 4 days later. I remember, like, it was a Saturday morning. I had a hangover, and I could hear my little answer phone going off. Gee, are you there? It's Joel. And I'm going, Joel. And I just said, oh. Bloody hell, I get out, pick up the phone. I said, what's going on, Joel? He said, just heard your demo, and I'm here with Kiefer Sutherland, and we're playing it on set, and everybody thinks it's unbelievable. I want this song, this is my theme song. I can't believe you, wait till you see the film. And in my head, the film was completely a different kind of thing. By the time I went to see it, when it came out here, I was in New York at the time, as I said. And when I came to LA, I looked at the film and went, oh my God, this is nothing what I thought it would be.
That's the magic of directors and producers and art directors and stuff, though, because the written page, you know, you can show a script to 10 different people.
I don't think I would have written Cry Little Sister had I seen the movie. I always say, I think because of my own imagination of what it was going to look like. And you know how when you read a book and you get like an idea, you get a whole world movie going on in your head. Of images, and so, but obviously I loved what he had done with it. It was just, and then they started putting the demo up against, just the actual demo up against the scenes. I mean, he actually wanted it all over. It was almost overkill, but that's what one goes through. Thank God he had that much love for it. But then I went and did the final production, which wasn't far. He said, don't go far away from what the demo is. And I didn't. I knew that demo love kind of thing. So I basically went in the studio, was able at that point, at that time, I only had 4 kids sing the backing vocals, and I doubled them. And so I actually got a choir of kids to come in. And it was an interesting process in which, you know, Joel and I were just talking about that recently, because I've had him involved to listen and to view everything I'm doing with the Broadway musical of Lost Boys Story. And we were just talking about when we were in the process, and I said, yeah, you remember when we were there? And I said, you know, my manager, I'll never forget it, the opening scene of the film where it's going over the water, and I said, take my vocal out, just let it be the kids and the track. And my manager said, what are you trying to do, commit artist suicide? And I just said, it's for the, and to be honest with you, just bring my voice in the middle of the film. Do not bring it in the beginning. You know, it just was one of those creative decisions. And it was a great collaboration. Joel Schumacher is one of the most intelligent and most dignified human beings
Is he?
in the business, really is. And,
I've met him at one or two things. We go to a lot of Golden Globe things, and he's just a gentleman.
oh, totally.
Just
80
absolutely.
years old.
Is he
Well,
really?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
No, well, you know, and he's like this
Oh,
one,
love
89 and 3/4.
I know.
But that's
We were
that's one of the
discussing
things
that.
people often ask me, for obvious reasons, what's your favorite Beatles song? And I always say In My Life, because if you close your eyes and listen to that song, everybody makes a different movie in their head. There are
Yeah.
places
Oh,
I
for sure.
remember. For you, it might be Wolverhampton. For me, it would be, you know, the Wirral or Liverpool.
Yeah.
There are places I remember all my life that things have changed, you know, some for better, some for never. And of all these friends and lovers, you're going to see a different parade of faces
Oh, yeah.
than I am.
That's a perfect song to of the description.
If you could not make a music video for that song because you'd piss off 99.9% of the people,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And that's what's so difficult about, and I think, you know, the word director in Hollywood, a lot of people don't really understand what that is. They think they just sit in a chair and point and go, action, cut. There's so, and producer, same thing. Well, what
Yeah.
do you produce a rabbit out of a hat? Well, kind of.
Yeah, it was kind of, the producer obviously is the one that's got a lot of moving parts and
That's
has to
right.
be,
Yeah.
over, you know.
But it's like the
overseen.
producer of music, I think, until people really realize the influence
Yeah.
that producers have.
Well, you know, the interesting thing is, I actually had a conversation with a mate of mine who runs a studio here in town.
Yeah.
And I was saying, you know, and I said, Peter, do you know what a record producer does actually? And do you know what a concert promoter does? I've asked this question now to several people. Nobody really knows what, I mean.
Yeah.
But you notice if they don't do it.
And it's like that thing, well, do people care? Well, in today's climate, I think it's getting to be, people want to know what people behind the scenes do, you know?
Yeah.
And a record producer is more like a director in a way, in our world, you know?
Right.
Where he does have to oversee all the other things going on with it, but he has a tremendous input as to how
And
get
suggestions, and absolutely. I mean, I think people started to, probably real true music fans in the 70s, and then subsequently from there, started to understand the influence that George Martin had on the Beatles, and people like Tony Visconti, and even, you know, Wall of Sound, Crazy Phil.
yeah.
They sort of created a Stock Aitken Waterman in England. You could tell that it was a Stock Aitken Waterman production, whether it was Kylie Minogue or Rick Astley, right?
Exactly.
They put their own kind of,
Well,
you know, influence in.
it's a very, you know, and having produced records, not that other, like Roger Daltrey's solo album, which I wrote and produced the entire album, Rocks in the Head. I had him co-write on some of the songs because he's got some very good, incredibly good ideas lyrically, and it was really the first time he ever wrote because he was always, you know, Pete was the writer,
Right.
and you always felt kind of intimidated by that. And but in producing, you wear many hats. You want to get the best out of an artist, and you don't want to step on the art, and you have to pull in the right, you know, musicians and know what's right for the record. You know?
Well, and plus then there's budgets and timing and
Yeah, it's all
schedules
that you got to be.
and vibes, and do you like this studio A over that studio B, or
Right.
has somebody got a track that they've recorded at home that they're absolutely married to, and how do you bring that into the
Exactly.
environment? And,
That's all that.
and what
kind of,
key do they sound best? They might have written it in E, but you want them to sing it in F, or
Yeah.
you know.
Exactly. There's so many different moving parts in being that, which I always thought a producer in the record business should be called a director, but
Yeah.
it's just
Magician.
yeah,
Yes,
magician.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
But
So where are you off to? Where are you off to next? What's the
I'm
calendar
actually
for you?
going back to Blighty.
Oh, are you?
Are you?
Okay.
Yeah.
Take that lovely jacket. You'll need it.
Oh yeah, indeed. You like
Fashion,
that, do you?
fashion
Love
forward,
it.
I do. I'd steal it off you, but it wouldn't even close in the front.
I
So.
know you got a problem there, though.
I do.
She's got two of them.
I do, and gravity's not helping.
The McCartney problem.
Yeah.
Oh wow! So you're going back to England then?
I'm actually going to New York on the 8th of October to work with my producers for 4 or 5 days, just to kind of go through the stuff that we're doing now. It's, you know, it's a mad world in all of this stuff. It takes so long doing a musical. I mean, Cyndi Lauper took 10 years to get
Kinky boots.
Kinky Boots. You hear the stories. I know Sting's got his thing going on now.
Yes.
That went through a Broadway showing. It didn't do that well, but I think they went back and rewrote. I understand it's quite good now, and they've gotten good. I mean, they've gotten it to a place where.
Good. Yeah, they're out the
But
years.
so they're coming and they're out here.
That's right.
I think at the Armstrong Theatre.
That's right,
Anyway, I'm going and performing in Manchester 2 nights at an event called For the Love of Horror, and it's going to be a Lost Boys reunion with Kiefer Sutherland and Jason Patrick.
Wow.
Really?
Wow.
Billy Worth, Jameson Newlander, Frog.
Yeah.
Frog Brothers, sure.
And Alex Winter,
Oh,
and myself, and so and Tim Capella, saxophone guy. So we're all Tim's going to be performing, and I'm going to be performing, and then I go on to come back down to London and go to Dublin, and where my dad's from, and then I go up to Glasgow. I can't remember where else we go. Brummie.
Wow.
I'll go back to my hometown.
To Brummie.
Yeah, going to play 2 nights there.
Just in time for Brexit,
And
so
there's
you'll
not a
be live.
break. Yeah, exactly.
You'll be live.
Speaking of people, a lot of people wish Halloween wouldn't end. I don't think Boris Johnson's going to be one of them. Probably wouldn't be the worst day of his life.
No politics.
No, exactly.
Well, yeah, it's a matter of world we've got going on with our two
Try
countries
and
right
get
now.
out of England. Try and fly out before the 31st of October, though, because at midnight the sat nav that is part of Galileo, which is part of the European Union. So it's the satellite that tells all the trains and planes and taxis and cars and
I'm flying out on the
iPhones
31st.
before midnight. I hope.
Before midnight, yeah, I'm flying
Because
out.
at midnight-
I literally fly back to New York on the 31st.
Okay.
I did not know
No.
any of this.
At midnight, the contract
For
expires.
a guy
That
that
thing
knows everything. I didn't know this.
that thing gets
Mine
shut
too.
off. So you see that the November the 1st will truly be the day of the dead.
Yeah,
If
exactly.
everybody's sitting freezing in taxis going nowhere.
I just want to say something, by the way.
Yes.
If all you viewers out there have not had the lovely tea
Oh,
by
thank
Angie
you.
McCartney
Thank
and
you.
Co.,
Jolly good.
you got to get into her products because, and she's not paying me to do this. She couldn't pay me enough.
Couldn't afford you.
You're right, exactly.
Exactly.
But it's so good, and just whenever they come over to my house for a dinner party, they always bring some lovely,
Tea.
the
So, okay,
trifle.
Oh, the
Very
trifle.
good.
I don't
Everybody
know.
at my dinner
Evil.
party, everybody loved that.
Well, I know, but I think your mashed potatoes are still number one.
Pretty good, right?
They're bloody
Mum
amazing.
made good mash.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
where I got
And
that
the lamb lollipops were good too.
Got to say, from Mum, she taught me well in the
Yeah.
cooking department. Even though I branched out, and I'm not quite vegan, but I do,
A lot of
I'm
veggie
sort of
stuff.
healthy. Yeah, I'm not. Yeah, I'm in
That's
the.
why
I
it's so
do.
fat,
I have a
isn't it?
piece of fish now and then, and I'll do the lamb. I'll have a little bit of that
Once in a
when I
while.
have the likes of you over.
Yeah, the meat-eating McCartneys.
Last
Yeah, that's right.
Exactly.
Not to.
Well, thanks for that. Well, you will be going home today. Your hostess gift is some of our Rockstar Rescue tea. So take that to England because it's great for your throat. If you get
Absolutely.
Yeah.
a cold, it's calendula and all
One
that
other
stuff.
thing I just wanted to mention, there is a Lost Boys TV series on the CW that's just, they went back and they did a pilot in the early part of summer, and CW liked it, and then they said, look, we want changes, so they reshot, they're reshooting the pilot now. And
Great.
so in other words, don't diss it until you kiss it.
Ooh.
And,
Well, Joni, who called in.
no, you don't hiss it until you kiss it. That's my new saying.
Oh, really?
And
Okay, yeah.
but it's it looks good. I mean, got great writers. Heather Mitchell, who was a long time, has Scandal, and she was,
Oh, yeah.
and to your, I think we were chatting about this earlier. Yes, diversify. And
Yeah.
I'm actually doing that in the musical. In
Yeah.
fact, Marco in the musical is black.
Great.
Yeah, that's what occurred to
So,
me. because
he had black
it was-
vampires.
yes.
So,
Great.
and I know
Well, you
people
know-
are going to go, oh my God, but you've got to remember, what I'm doing with the musical and what Lost Boys the series is, it's an extension. Mine's a bit more closer, obviously, to the real, to the story
Yeah.
and expanded. And the Lost Boys, the TV series, without giving anything away, is a bit more like it's present day, but it still has a correlation to everything that the film
Well, that's
and, what it's,
Fabulous,
and
yeah.
characters, whatever.
well. It's just it's one of those classic films that will just it has a life beyond
You know, of the
theatre, isn't it?
53 films I've done music to, and I've counted them up.
There he
I've
goes
done the
again.
songs, yeah.
Here we go again.
Wow.
I never would have imagined that this one would have that
Yeah.
Cult following.
cult
Yes.
following,
Yes.
but it just keeps, my audience is like mid-20s, and the reason being is they saw the music, and
Yeah.
some people don't even know the movie, but they know my song,
Yeah.
and I always say, you've got to see the movie, you're missing half what
Yeah, I
Oh,
love the
where it
story.
came from.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Well, that's great.
yeah, just give everything a chance in the Lost Boys world. And if you don't like it, you can just shut the telly off, or you spent $160 going to see my play and said that was rubbish, but you're not going to do that because it's not rubbish. I can tell you that.
I can tell people have worked very, very hard. Well, I can't thank you enough, Gerard.
Thank you
So
both for having me on.
Here is
Mom.
your Rockstar Rescue.
Oh my
To
God!
take to England.
Yes.
And
How about that?
turn the kettle up to 11 when you boil it.
You know I do.
I know you do, baby.
Yeah.
No, this
So-
is perfect for singers.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's just
flawless.
coats.
Good.
Yeah.
It's like
You're
a
gonna
throat
be-
coat.
Somebody finally got it right.
But it's throat coat, but it's organic, non-GMO,
Disinfectant,
child
everything.
friendly. It's really, really good. So enjoy that on us.
Yeah,
And you
thank
might want to take another jacket over to
Okay, yeah, you know, it's
It'll be
interesting.
chilly.
Last year when I was, not this past summer before, Eric Falkenstein, one of my producers, we went to spend 2 weeks just meeting people in the West End for the musical.
Yeah.
But we went out, and it was I was in London for 3 weeks. It was the hottest summer, not a
Oh,
day,
really?
it did not sprinkle one day.
Amazing.
And it was just, I mean, you know,
Yeah.
you love it when it's like that,
Oh,
especially
yeah.
in the summer.
Yeah.
But mind you, come around October, yeah, I'll definitely be wearing another jacket.
It'll get chilly, but maybe you can go into the kids department in Marks and Spencer's and find yourself a new wardrobe.
Of course I can.
This man weighs 90 pounds. I hate him.
Not really. 145. please.
Yeah, well, exactly.
Big fat
My left
Well,
leg
it's
weighs
not that I
that.
don't eat. I eat like, I mean, I work out a lot. I mean, I work out 5 days a week, and I do look after myself. But I mean, you got to do that to do this.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
what the amount of energy that goes into performing live,
Yeah.
it takes so much. The longevity of it is
Yeah.
what you
Oh,
really
yeah.
have to think about.
That's right.
Anyway.
Well, speaking of longevity, many wishes for a long
Well-
run on Broadway.
Well, thank
When
you.
that happens.
Absolutely.
And
Thank you so much
cheers,
for having me
darling.
on.
absolutely.
Oh, pleasure.
And long may the Lost Boys reign.
It shall.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Was there a limerick?
Thanks for. Oh yes,
Oh.
I think there was actually.
Hello.
Was,
Yes,
was there
yes,
a limerick
yes, yes,
today?
yes.
See, you know,
Such a
I'm
good
so-
show, we're forgetting the content.
I'm
Excellent.
so.
Yes.
All right.
Okay,
So
so-
after 3, 1, 2, 3. Our thanks to our friend GTom Mac. As a writer, this guy is no hack. His cry, little sister, 'twas hard to resist her, and hopefully soon she'll be back.
Ta-da!
Oh my God, that's
There you
quite clever.
You get your own limerick.
But
There you go. Cheers.
nothing less than clever.
Cheers to that.
With this lot.
Cheers, guys.
Thanks for
See you next
tuning in.
week.
See you soon.
Cheers, everybody.
All the best.
Bye-bye.